Hello, everyone. Hello, it's your girl Rosie K here at This Kind of Girl. Um, Before we launch into today's episode, I wanted to firstly let you all know, I literally have walked into the house about 10 minutes ago. You know, when you have one of those days when you leave the house in the morning and you think you're going to be back within the next few hours and you'll have time to do the stuff. Well, and you don't. Um, that has been how my day has essentially gone today. I should have been back many, many hours ago, but I'm not. I've literally just walked in now. Now, luckily, I did do quite a lot of work yesterday for today's episode, so that's a good thing, which means I'm not here completely unprepared. But that's how my day has been thus far. But it does feel really good to be back recording one of these episodes for you. I know I had to change things last week, but all is good. And also, I think sometimes having that little bit of time away from your commitments, or from my commitments here, is sometimes a good thing because it allows me to kind of use my creative brain a little bit. And I've just been given a cup of tea, so life is good. So today we are going to talk about why is it that people deem it appropriate to share their fantasies with me. Um, so dear TKG Club members, why do people deem it appropriate to share their fantasies with me? Lately, my inbox has been filled with a new type of unsolicited message. No longer do I appear to be receiving dick pics, which is always a positive. Instead, I appear to be receiving the unsolicited sharing of fantasies, sometimes with accompanying pictures, sometimes without. And having been subject to this barrage of oversharing lately, I decided that in order for me to process this newfound annoyance, I would put pen to paper and I would decide to create a piece of content on it and share my experience with you all here. Maybe you can offer me some insight. Maybe it's something you've experienced when you've been, when you kind of put yourself forward on something, or when you perhaps joined something, people have deemed it appropriate. Or maybe, maybe I just want a little sympathy. Whatever the reason, I know I will feel better once I have shared. And maybe you could offer some clarity as well. Maybe I'm overreacting. I'm not sure, but I thought I'd share it. So why is it that random strangers feel it appropriate to share their fantasies with me? Now, as somebody who makes a living discussing the many intricate details of people's lives with them, listening to other people's fantasies and desires is kind of part and parcel of my job. And it is my job to help people go from, I'd really like to discuss this with my husband, to, wow, we're actually living our fantasies right now. I can't believe this is really happening. And for the most part, this is great to see the transformation in people, and especially in couples who go from having no idea how to really talk about these things to actually going and doing these things without it jeopardizing their relationship. That is what I do, and it's hugely rewarding, and it gives me so much satisfaction to know that they are now leading a more authentic life, and it's great. So why is it then that I find it so appalling when people choose to do just this with me? Why is it I find it appalling that people choose to share their fantasies with me? After all, it is listening to people is what I'm good at, and it is what I do. Well, the reason I believe I find it so irritating, appalling, quite disgusting in some cases, is that usually, in most cases, the partners of the sharers have no idea that that person is sharing with me. And what I find most upsetting is when the person decides to send pictures of their unsuspecting partners to me without that person's consent. But I'll talk more about that later. I believe there are two reasons that people decide to share their fantasies with me. Firstly, they think that's because I am a swinger lifestyle expert and something of a representative for the lifestyle and people who choose to live in ethically non-monogamous ways or have an interest in it, I must be living and breathing the lifestyle every day. Hearing about it uninvited from others, maybe they think is just another perk of the job. Because sex is something that I am very comfortable talking about. So why would I not be open to hearing about the sex that they want to have? It's not that dissimilar to when people think women who create content for OnlyFans are willing to have sex with anyone. Because for a lot of people, they presume that it is just in these women's nature. And I think another reason, and I almost feel sorry for people when I say this, is that I believe in most cases, the people who share their fantasies with me simply don't have anybody else to talk to about this. The partner that they like to talk about in these fantasies or share pictures of with me is in most cases not on board with whatever it is they are cooking up and would probably be quite defensive and quite hostile and quite upset should the person decide to share with them. Maybe they have tried in the past and it hasn't panned out the way they wanted, so they feel as though they can't share. Therefore, the only person who they feel they can talk to is someone who openly advertises as being non-judgmental and supportive. In other words, this dickhead sitting right here. So maybe I have made a rod for my own back with it. Maybe I invite these people to do this. I'm not sure. But I also think that this is where a lot of people get confused because I will listen to people's fantasies. I will listen to their desires. And I will help make your desires a reality, but only if you are both present and willing to listen to my advice. Now, as well as people sharing their fantasies with me, unfortunately, it does get a little bit worse than this because sometimes some people decide to include me in their fantasies, and this is where it gets a little bit weird. Now, this happened recently. A gentleman sent me a message on Instagram that at first appeared genuine enough, and I did as I always do. I offered some advice and then I directed him in the direction of a blog article that he might find useful. And then I said I was able to talk about this with him and his wife over a call should they wish to discuss it further. Now, he definitely did wish to discuss it further and proceeded to send me paragraph after paragraph of fantasies he would like to act out with his unsuspecting wife. And he was asking me, what did I think? Would I do this? Would I do that? Would I like to see her? And then he decided, no, fuck that. I'll just send you images of her anyway. Now, it was a lot to digest whilst I was doing my weekly shop at Aldi, and not to mention immensely annoying. I kept deleting the messages, not responding, and yet they kept coming. So clearly this man, he did not get the message. So in the end, I blocked him, and I felt enormously sorry for this gentleman's wife because this poor woman has to deal with this dickhead on a daily basis. Now, sometimes, as I've mentioned earlier, people do decide to share pictures of their partners with me, and this really gets my back up. Any sharing, and I mean any sharing of images without the consent of the individual being shared is a huge no-no, regardless of whether it is on a swingers dating website, a DM in my inbox, or otherwise. If you are going to put images out there of someone else, then you need to have their consent first. But again, as you've just learned, very rarely do the people in the pictures even know that messages are being sent about them, let alone pictures. Luckily for the people in said photographs, I am me. And because I am me, I feel very strongly about the unsolicited sharing of other people's images. And most times I don't even open the images. Sometimes it's because I worry about what content is inside, but usually it's because of out of respect for the person who I'm being told about, or I will enjoy this picture of them. I just don't open it. Um, sometimes I'm sent pictures of, this is me and my wife on holiday in such and such a place. And usually I delete the pictures or delete the thread or whatever it is to kind of protect myself a little bit. And then I explain politely that, I don't wish to see pictures, or I don't wish to engage in this conversation any further. I don't want to see pictures of your wife. Thanks. I'm a responsible and professional person. And I have on more than one occasion been sent picture messages that I've decided not to open, but I have been 99% sure that there have been pictures of another person's anatomy, let's just say. And these are usually accompanied by the sender asking me, how would you feel? Sorry. And I have kind of turned it around and asked the sender, how would you feel if your wife was sending pictures of you to another man who she was talking to, who she was sharing fantasies with, who she was engaging in that, trying to engage in that type of conversation with and sending pictures of you to? How would you feel about it? And it usually falls on deaf ears. Another thing which I find slightly weird and confusing in my world is that I've also received messages that accompany pictures, and I've been asked for my thoughts on people's partners, such as, what do you think of my wife? Or do you think you would enjoy my wife? Or do you think my wife looks good in this, etc., etc.? These messages in particular probably make me feel the most awkward. Sometimes it feels like they are seeking my approval of their partner or wanting to know my actual thoughts. Sometimes I wonder if it's because I am, because I'm experiencing the lifestyle, because I make so much content, because I know so much. Maybe they're kind of coming to somebody who, well, does she approve? Because if she approves and if she thinks you're worthy of the lifestyle, then you must be. And I absolutely hate it. I always tread very carefully when responding, and I try my best to be firm but polite. After all, it's not the woman herself that I am giving the brush off. It's the actions of her partner that I disapprove of. And even if the woman is absolute, everybody has personal preferences, and this woman could tick all of the personal preferences that I like, but I would still give the brush off. I would still be dismissive of the whole thing out of respect for the wife, because it's just not what you do. It makes me I feel awkward even talking about it because it happens that frequently. And even if the woman is not my cup of tea, I would never pass judgment, as I feel that would be grossly unfair. But sometimes explaining that to people is really hard. And also, a lot of times people are quick to say, oh, well, you just don't like my wife, or you just don't do this, or you just wouldn't do that, or you just, and people get quite defensive because actually I'm criticizing their actions. And normally I just respond by saying, look, I'm sure she's a great woman, but I do not wish to receive pictures of her. Next up, as to another reason as to why it really gets my back up, is that essentially these people, they are not paying me. And I know I sound like a bitch when I say this, but I'm going to go for it and say, all right, this is my channel. I can say what I want. So I need to say this, they're not paying me. My time is valuable. And unless you are paying me for my going rate to listen to you, then I'm not giving up my time to listen to your fantasies. I don't do this kind of girl because I want to divulge in sexy chats, essentially. That's not my thing. For some people, it is. It's not my thing. Okay. I do this for a living. If someone shares a little with me, goes on to read a blog article or perhaps watch a video I have created, then comes back to me with more questions, then okay, I see that you have genuine intention. I see that you have a genuine interest, and perhaps you just need a little bit of guidance or directing to the right piece of content or the right, service or product for you. But if you think I'm here to chat about your life that you are too scared to make happen, then I'm afraid absolutely not. I am out. I mean, I can give you the skills to talk to your own wife about these things, because that is one thing I can do. So you can share with her your secret desires. But the bottom line is 99% of the time, I don't like you. I doubt you will listen. So move along, please. And I know that sounds harsh, but I really wanted to say that. So how should I respond? And would this oversharing be appropriate in any other industry? As you can probably tell, the unsolicited sharing of fantasies is something that I do not tolerate. However, I still do try to be polite about it, at least initially. As I said earlier, I do feel some degree of sympathy for the sender, as these messages, they don't come from a place of abundant conversation and non-judgmental sharing at home. Instead, I believe they come from a place of fear of repercussion and wanking alone in a spare room. Two things I'm grateful I do not have to subject myself to. Would this be tolerated in any other industry? Probably not. But part of the problem is that I operate in rather a grey area. I try desperately hard not to be in that area, but I often find myself caught somewhere between therapist and sex positive swinger role model, which is not a bad place to be, but it does kind of lump you in with an awful lot of other people who provide different services and different art forms, and people sometimes don't always know how to differentiate between the two. So how do I respond? Well, I can either tell the sender that I'm not interested in them personally and direct them to a piece of content I think will help them. I made a whole video workshop on how to discuss fantasies in your relationship. Or if that is disregarded, I simply delete the thread and block them. But sometimes I do feel kind of sorry for people, because often I notice that there's an awful lot of kind of pent up emotion behind it, because they're so relieved to share it, but they just go overboard and go about it in the wrong way. But deleting people and blocking them, is this really the right thing to do? They may benefit from a little feedback as to where they are going wrong. Maybe I'm afraid that it will fall on deaf ears, or maybe I don't have the patience to explain, which I think is the more logical explanation there. Perhaps I should make a point of explaining this oversharing is inappropriate. I'm not sure. So let's see what my DMs have in store for me this week. Now, thank you very much for listening. Thank you much for joining me this week. I really enjoyed sharing that. And as you can see, it's been something that I've been wanting to talk about for quite a while. I think sometimes, I do try and encourage. I think an irony here is that I do try and encourage people to share in their experiences, or share in their desires or fantasies or things they want to try and have these conversations and talk about, but in the right space and in the right context. Because to be honest, the TKG Club is a space where we can share openly, and I actively encourage people, if they want to share, if they want to talk about things, to do so, and do so as little or as much as they feel comfortable with. But I think sometimes it's kind of the fact that they ignore my professionalism or my professional input. This is the people who respond in the DMs. They ignore my professional input and simply just keep going. And I think that's probably what annoys me the most. They disregard my professional opinion and my stance, and they simply blurt out everything that they want to say. Or, they ignore or disrespect my wishes to, when I ask people to not share that, or not say that, or, whatever kind of blockage I kind of put in, and that they disregard that. I think that's probably the root cause of it. There are places that we can share. There are places where, freedom of sharing your fantasies and desires and experiences is encouraged in a much wider platform than simply TKG Club. A lot of the swinger dating sites have huge, segments where people users can share their own with their own experiences and things like that, and that's great. And it's great that we in the lifestyle like to listen and read these. So I think really it's about choosing the correct space to do it. But if you have any input, if you have any thoughts surrounding this topic, I would love for you to get in touch and let me know. Now, coming up next week, I'm just looking at next week's event. So the next one I have here is, hi Rosie, what to do if someone is better than your partner when swinging. This is the next topic that I'm going to be talking about. I'm very much excited to be talking about this topic in a few weeks, because it's something which is something of a taboo in the swingers world. Is it something that you talk about in your relationship? Is it something that you quietly admit to yourself and never talk about with your partner? Is it something that you're, or kind of aware of? Is it something which actually, are you a cuckold couple and you enjoy it in that respect? There's so many different ways of looking at it, and it's a topic which I want to explore. So that's what I will be covering next week. Or should I say the next time that I go live. Thank you very much for your continued support of all I do here at This Kind of Girl. I know I've been very busy with getting the coaching course up and running. I've also been doing quite a lot of work with a new swingers dating site, which is launching over in the States, which is quite exciting. And that they've got me on board. The creator of that has got me on board with that, and I will be, as soon as that is up and running, and as soon as people from the UK are using it, I will, of course, be sharing the details with everybody here. But yeah, that's taken up quite a lot of my time as well, as has the launch of the coaching course. But as soon as the coaching course starts, it will be business as usual, and I'll be able to put out a lot more content. So again, thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for being part of my journey and part of my story. I know that some of you have been in contact with me recently, kind of asking about TKG Club, and also asking me in ways that you could maybe contribute or boost interactions. Whatever you want to do, whatever you want to post, then that's all fine by me. Maybe I should also look into that and ask people their thoughts on different pieces of content or different things they'd like to do. Also, I think if you want to submit a question for Q&A, you can also do that, or maybe make a suggestion for a workshop or a podcast episode. A podcast episode could be quite good. So if you want me to create any content that is user central, then submit a question for Q&A and I will answer that in a few weeks' time. Absolutely no problem. Thank you very much for watching. It has been lovely to sit and catch up with you all. I now have to go and unload the car and unload the shopping and carry on with my day, because I feel like I have about 4 hours to make up. Right, everybody, I shall see you all next time.